Today on Austin Stories, insane Karens steal baby names from OP, accuse them of faking surgery, and then encourage their kid to steal from OP. Get ready. All my videos are in podcast form, so check out the Austin Stories podcast on your local provider or the link in the description below. Here we go. Oh man, the title of this story just screams out nasty Karen. Here we go. Entitled Sister-in-Law Stole Our Baby Name and Now She Regrets It. Posted by Dad Who Stood His Ground. Oh, here we go. Hey y'all, longtime lurker and all that. This is a throwaway account. To cut to the chase, my wife and I spent 4 years trying to get pregnant before the wrong side of 35. We're currently 33 respectively now and are blessed with a wonderful infant son. My wife has a younger half-sister that she has been low contact with for some time. The woman is entitled and toxic and also her mother's golden child. We've refused to let her or my mother-in-law in the house since they both blatantly tried to make off with my wife's jewelry box a couple of years ago. The box contained a lot of valuable jewelry inherited from my wife's grandmother. Said jewelry is now in a safety deposit box as per my suggestion. My wife and I had nearly given up trying to conceive when it suddenly happened, and we were ecstatic. After we found out we were having a boy, we started looking into names. I ended up suggesting the name of my Scottish grandfather, and my wife loved it. So that's the name that we settled on. Oh, but we made the mistake of posting about it on social media. Well, no surprise to the stereotype in this mess, my sister-in-law was pregnant too, and was months further along than my wife and also having a boy. She decided to claim my grandfather's name for her own son. Oh, and not just the first name, but the middle name too. We called her ticked over what she was doing, and she smugly told us there's nothing we can do about it. Which she was, well, sort of right. There was nothing we could do about it legally, as it's still not a crime to steal planned baby names. We realized that drama was exactly what my sister-in-law wanted, and she thought that by taking the name for herself, we'd not be able to use it. I laughed and told her that while what she did was dirty and underhanded, we would keep our chosen name, and she could just deal with it whether she decides to go through with copying us or not. Well, my sister-in-law's baby daddy called me and said I was an unreasonable jerk for still wanting to use the name after sister-in-law claimed it. I said, hey, she claimed nothing, man. And since we couldn't own the name, then neither could they. Before he ended the call, he threatened me by saying I'd be sorry if we didn't change the name, and then he hung up before I could even respond. Months later, sister-in-law has a healthy baby boy and names him my grandfather's name. We did not show up for the birth, both because of the pandemic and because, well, we simply didn't care to be there. Sister-in-law called us wanting congratulations, but we told her that we simply didn't care, and that if she was still insisting that we change our baby's name, then she'd be in for some big disappointment because we were not. Sister-in-law demanded that I put my wife on the phone, but it was already on speaker, and my wife spoke up and said that she agrees with me entirely. We weren't changing the name. Sister-in-law hung up on us, but soon started sending emails with text walls of names, even suggesting similar ones. I responded back that the name was from my grandfather, and that's why we were not changing it. She shut up, and we didn't hear from her again till after our own son was born. 2 months later, we were blessed with our son. He came out perfect, and we named him just as we'd intended. Well, no surprise, my sister-in-law called us a few days after the birth to scream in our ears that we copied her son's name. I pointed out that she was the real copycat since she had no familial ties to the name, and we did. And anyone who looks at our family trees could see that. Then my wife spoke and said, after the attempted theft of her grandmother's jewelry, she no longer considered sister-in-law her sister, and would have nothing to do with her nephew either. for months. We were bombarded with messages and emails from my wife's side of the family. Half were on our side after finding out the whole story, and the other half were not. And sister-in-law's baby daddy, true to his word, showed up at my door to make me sorry. I'm not sure what his plan was, but I pretty much towered over him. I'm 6'1", and I'm well built from regular exercise and 3 trips to the gym a week. He, on the other hand, he was a very skinny and about 5'6", with a baby face that was badly hidden by a slim beard. I told him my house has cameras and to get off of my property and never come back. He just yelled a few obscenities at me and drove off in his beat-up old car. Sister-in-law and mother-in-law called us from a different number to yell at me for making sister-in-law's baby daddy feel emasculated. I didn't even threaten the man. I just told him to leave and not come back. And if he didn't want to feel emasculated, then he shouldn't have come knocking. Then they tried to bring up the issue of the baby name again and demanded that we change our son's name as he's so young, there's still plenty of time to do it. We held our ground and told them that they were bonkers to still think that they were in the right after they copied our choice of name just to try and get one over on us. I said sister-in-law didn't even name her son out of love, but out of spite, just to try and stick it to my wife for no good reason. Then my wife called them both out on the way that she was treated growing up, how entitled sister-in-law and mother-in-law have always been, and how she was glad to leave them far behind. And she wants nothing from them, and they won't have anything from us. That left sister-in-law sobbing, and mother-in-law called me a royal jerk before hanging up the phone. That was no contact again for a little while, till sister-in-law called us again sometime later to bitterly tell us that we'd won. She and her baby daddy got in a huge fight, and he left. He was apparently very sore that sister-in-law didn't let him even give their son a middle name from his family. And he said he was sick of the bullcrap and wanted his son named after him and not some guy he wasn't even related to. Sister-in-law finally caved, and they got the boy's birth certificate reissued with a completely new name, which cost sister-in-law around $500 or so, she claims. Sister-in-law then demanded that we at least compensate her for the name change, plus another $100 for the emotional damage, as she's now going to have to get used to calling her son by a different name. We laughed and said that this never would have happened if she hadn't stolen our baby name to begin with, and we didn't owe her anything. Since then, we've been no contact with sister-in-law and mother-in-law, but my father-in-law, who's a very nice man and divorced from mother-in-law for obvious reasons, would come by often and loves his grandson. From what he and other relatives told us, the situation between sister-in-law and her baby daddy was pretty tumultuous. But we don't care. Not our monkeys, not our circus. Wow, my goodness, I just kept seeing twists and turns in this story that I didn't expect before. Like, first she steals the name, right, and then they go at it for a while. And then the baby daddy leaves, and then it starts this whole other thing. She has to pay to get it changed, $500. Who knows if she's lying? It's really hard to tell with a Karen at this point. And it just falls apart. And the crazy thing is, this Karen actually admits defeat. This does not happen very often. You have witnessed a rarity thing in the Karen world, right? But hey, look, the babies' names, I'm saying this as a dad myself, okay? Middle-aged 30s, all right? Babies' names are not toys. They are not little things that you can hold over them. You're naming an adult when you name that child. Use the president test, president name, or the honorable judge name. Don't make a baby name all about yourself. Don't do it, Karen. You have a child, you have an adult, future adult, that needs to have the true love and care of a name that you give them out of your heart. This is a nasty story. Way to go, OP. I'm sorry you had to deal with this, man. And the narcissism is rough, but you all came out on top. It sounds like you didn't really lose much when you cut them out. Entitled Karen doesn't believe I have surgery, posted by Future OK 6751. Good grief. By this title alone, this is going to be freaking insane. Here we go. This happened about 10 years ago. I was 22 at the time and had to have a knee surgery to clear out shredded cartilage from about a week after my birthday. This story takes place 3 days after the surgery. My mom, who's a nurse, this is important for later, my husband, boyfriend of 2 years at the time, and my best friend decided to take me shopping to try and get my mind off of the surgery and to pick up craft supplies so I wouldn't be bored while I was off of work. I should mention that it was an orthopedic surgery, so I didn't need to use crutches if I didn't feel the need and should be walking some. When we got to the craft store, not our first stop, my husband and best friend made me use one of the store's wheelchairs. Now, I was being stubborn because I could still walk, just not very fast or as long without breaks. Since I didn't really want to be in this chair, husband and friend decided to make a game out of it. Like, who could push me the fastest? Now, you might think we are wrong, but let me state this was in the middle of the day, on a Monday, so the store was not busy and my husband and best friend would check the aisle to make sure that the coast was clear. After one of the speeding events, I was looking at something in an aisle and my mom pulled husband and best friend away to look at something else. It was something that she thought I would like and she was going to get it as a surprise for me. Well, I decided I didn't want whatever it was that I was looking at, and then I stood up to put it back. This is when Karen appears berating me for using the wheelchair as a toy and how there are people who actually need it. I am calmly explaining that I just had surgery and that's why I'm using it. She then goes on and on about how she saw what my friends were doing and that I'm obviously lying. I explained that they were trying to make me feel better, and I would tell them to push me normally from now on. This did not appease Karen, and she is still berating me. At this point, I roll up my pants leg and I show her the compression bandages that I am still wearing. She goes on about how that means nothing, and I could have just wrapped my knee as an excuse in case we were caught, and she bet that the other people with me also have their knees wrapped. My group returns at this point and says the same thing as me. Karen is still not having it, and we are all lying. I look at my mom and ask if I can take off my bandages as they were supposed to be removed the next day. She says I really shouldn't, but she could rewrap it for me if needed. At this point, I take off the bandages before anyone can stop me, showing Karen my knee in all of its post-surgery glory. It was bruised and swollen and crusty at the incision sites, and you still see the iodine on my skin. Karen's face goes white, and she looks like she's gonna be sick. She starts stammering about how I didn't need to go that far, as my mom is rewrapping my knee, scolding me and Karen under her breath. I look at Karen and I say, "What else did you want me to do? I told you, they told you, I showed you the bandages, you wouldn't get off of your high horse and insist that we were lying." At this point, a staff member comes to check if we need any help, and then Karen runs for the door. We had a pleasant rest of our day and stopped for ice cream on the way home. Now, as a clarification, we were not running, drifting around corners, using the brakes while moving, doing wheelies, or having more than one person in the chair. What we were doing were speed walking with clear aisles and seeing how far I would go with one push from a dead stop. We were still very careful with that wheelchair. Oh, Karen, you know what they say about assumptions, right? They make a butt out of you and me to keep it clean. And here's the thing, they're having fun. It is a little bit of fun that is a little sketchy. You know what, I'm just gonna be honest here. I've had this kind of fun too. We've all done some things that we're like, hey, we're doing the thing. And if we had video cameras back when we were growing up, at least my age, things would be a little different for us, right? But the point is, this Karen was assuming that this was not a real surgery because she wasn't laid up in a bed from bed rest or anything like that, because she was actually up and active and going. This was not a real surgery recovery. Oh, Karen, why must you assume the things you do and act the way you are? Because you're clearly wrong here, and you got a nice little visual of all the gory nastiness from the post-surgery OP's knee. That was the icing on the cake of this story. That made it so good. OP, I'm sorry that you had to deal with this KAREN, but you came out on top. Way to go. Hope you had some fun. Oh, this is going to be a nasty Karen story. It's called Entitled Mother Assaults Me After Her Daughter Steals My Candy, posted by Call Me Destinova 42. Shoo, here we go. This happened almost 6 years ago. I had just turned 20. At the time, I was a college student with no job, but I occasionally worked as a babysitter. It wasn't anything too serious, and I charged, almost nothing, but I was good with kids, and the parents liked me. Plus, it was the first job that I ever had, so I was proud of it. During vacations, I went to the mall with 3 of my friends to see Spider-Man Homecoming at the movies. We got there early and decided to stop at a toy store so one of my friends could buy a birthday gift for his cousin. There was a candy kiosk nearby, and I wanted to get some for the movie, so I told my friends to just go ahead without me, and I'd meet them in the store. As I was buying the candy, the store was giving out samples of a new product. It was some kind of long chocolate stick, think Pocky but thicker, and they gave me one for free, and I left. I bit into it once or twice and went back to the store to meet my friends. As I was walking through the doll aisle, I passed by a little girl about 7 or 8 and her mother, entitled Mother. I put my hand that was holding the chocolate down for a second, and seconds later, the girl came up to me, quickly snatched the candy from my hand, and shoved the piece that she'd broken off in her mouth. I yelled out a quick, "What the heck?" careful not to swear at kids, which got the entitled mom's attention. I explained what had happened to her. To my absolute shock at the time, the mom seemed to be angry at the daughter at first, demanding she'd apologize to me. But the girl was making excuses. Oh, she was hungry, the chocolate was right in front of her, she wanted it more than me, and she seemed to think that she had nothing to apologize for. As she proceeded to tell Mom that she'd done nothing wrong, entitled Mom said something along the lines of, "I know, honey, but we don't want the lady to call security now, do we?" What? Entitled Mom, who we'll now call Karen, turned back to me and said, "I mean, really, my daughter, she's just 8 years old. You're a grown woman. You shouldn't be making such a big deal about chocolate." I pointed out to her that, well, if she wanted candy, they could literally get some for free at the kiosk herself. There was no need to steal mine. Karen continued to defend her daughter, insisting that, well, I might as well just get more chocolate myself. I was ticked, but I didn't want things to get blown out of proportion. For some reason, though, I had hoped the daughter would at least begin to understand why she couldn't go around stealing people's food. So I said, "Ma'am, I'm trying really, really hard right now to be patient. I'm a nanny, but how could it possibly be okay for your daughter to steal candy from a complete stranger like that?" Next thing I know, my face was burning and there was a large handprint across my cheek. Karen had also had large rings that almost broke my skin. She was screaming at me, but I was too shocked to pay attention. One of my friends heard the commotion and came to see what was going on. I told him that Karen had slapped me, so he called security. Before they could arrive, Karen told her daughter not to tell them anything. Me and my friend exchanged looks and silently agreed that we'd be better parents in the future. The Paul Blarts came and escorted Karen and her daughter out. I later found out that they'd been banned from the toy store for their troubles, and that was more than enough for me. I ended up buying more chocolate sticks. Jeez, I hope that kid turned out okay. Okay, stepping in here as a parent. First off, if your kid takes something from someone, you gotta discipline them in the store right there. I mean, you gotta handle it when it happens, not later at home. That's the hot moment. That's when you gotta do it. You cannot say that's okay. Because as I do it here, they're gonna do it when they grow up, possibly. Mom says it's okay. They're gonna get the wrong person and then something bad is gonna happen. There's no guarantee, yes, but I can just see this being a catalyst, being a beginning section saying that, hey, this is okay. Mommy lets me do it. I'm gonna go do it to more people again and again. If I can't get what I want, I'm gonna get what I want. And then boom, another entitled Karen is born. Way to go holding your ground, OP, and I'm sorry you got the slap by the Karen, but I'm glad you got the chocolate and I hope you enjoyed the movie. The dumbest HOA Karen president ever gets herself fired and exposed for what she says about OP that he wasn't supposed to hear. Click the video on your screen. This is some of the insane fallout you cannot miss, and I'll see you in that next one.